Well, it didn't take very long, 24 hours after announce, and we're already jumping into our first official campaign gameplay for Astragoth Ironhand, the High Priest of Hashut and de facto faction ruler of the Chaos Dwarfs. I think the general community sentiment right now is excitement. The Lords, unit roster, and overall aesthetic of the faction look fantastic, but looks are only a part of a much larger picture here, one that will hopefully become much clearer after watching this video, because there will be unit stats, battle footage, and an in-depth look at how the Dawizar actually play on the campaign map. The other side of the coin, of course, is that plenty of people have reservations about price right now, which at least in the US is roughly 20 to 25% higher than it was for the Tomb Kings or Vampire Coast, which are the best comparisons we can draw for the Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs DLC. And as has always been the case, there are certain countries that just get absolutely screwed by currency conversion on Steam. So for some countries, it's a lot worse than that. If you've been paying attention to the cost of living, groceries, housing, entertainment, this shouldn't really come as a surprise to you. It seems that pretty much everything is going up in cost except wages, which have been largely stagnant in the US, and that seems to be true lots of other places as well. Whether that's due to corporate greed, inflation, market forces, or simple economics, whatever, it is a sign of the times, it is the reality, and only you can decide if it's worth your money or not. We've been told the Disciples of Hashut have amongst the most in-depth and complex campaign mechanics in the trilogy thus far, so with any luck, we may be able to test the veracity of that claim today and get a better picture of how everything's coming together a month or so out from launch. This will be more of an informal style. I'm just gonna let the video play, and then I'll jump in, pause, and rewind when something interesting comes up. There will probably be a decent amount of pausing and analysis as I watch this in real time, so just fair warning. Let's jump into it. Why is Astragoth curb stomping his own homie? I get the Dawizar are cold, heartless individuals, but that is a new low, senor, and that is a definite typo. That is not how you spell disciples. That needs an S right here. All right, interesting. And this whole opening sequence is exactly why I want to see like a Saving Private Ryan set in the Warhammer Fantasy Battle universe, which of course does not have the popularity in any way, shape, or form to go global and hit up the box office, but I just love the idea of a war movie that doesn't take itself particularly seriously and just goes for these kind of cinematics. Like, we get that to an extent, obviously, the cinematic battles in Total War itself, but there are things you can do with a bigger budget that you can't do in a strategy game, and this was a really cool little look at one of the bigger rivalries in Warhammer Fantasy Battle. When you talk about the Black Orcs, of course, they were born and bred by the Dawizar, and I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of introduce them fighting one of their biggest rivals, because it was their revolt that almost brought down the Chaos Dwarf Empire, and it was entirely due to their own delusions of grandeur and their own haughtiness, their own foolishness. Being destroyed by the monster you yourself create is a really cool theme, and it almost happened to the Dawizar, so I like this opening a lot. Astragoth looks awesome. Kind of like old Hammer style with this dude. I mean, he really does kind of look like a model straight out of the early 90s. But I don't know why he's going all American History X on his own Chaos Dwarf infantry. Get curb stomp, Gears of War style, bitch.
Astragoth, No, he's not a spacefaring metalhead, he's a mecha-wearing, magic-wielding, limb-petrified High Priest of Hashut, and he's on a mission to prove his best sorcering days aren't yet behind him. Chaos Dwarfs, what a lovely pair of words. You'll be pleased to know our angry little Chaos friends have a nice variety of ranged, melee, cavalry, and artillery units, as well as enough cannon fodder to make the greenest of Skavens salivate. Orc and Goblin labourers offer an inexpensive front line that can be used to distract your enemy's army and control the flow of the battlefield. We'll use them in our approach to soak up arrows and conceal the units we actually care about. Meanwhile, Astragoth and our Centaur boys are going to loop around the back and
Okay, so let's take a look at stats here real quick. This battle's not going to be particularly interesting. I think it's going to be the first in his entire playthrough. Usually is pretty easy with that first fight, first skirmish. Astragoth, 520 weapon strength, which is mostly due to his Nemesis Dread Knight. That's pretty wild, so he hits hard. 60-50, he's going to be a more than decent melee combatant, and he has 130 armor, almost unbreakable leadership at 97. Yeah, he's going to be a frontline combatant, no question about it. He is a Sorcerer Prophet, of course, which typically you don't think of them as being incredible frontliners, but when you're strapped into a mecha, that kind of changes things somewhat, doesn't it? And, I mean, his stats across the board are pretty impressive. He'll be a mixed Lore of Hashut character with Lore of Fire, a combination of those two lores of magic.
harass their archers. Yep, you heard that right. Astragoth's legs are as swift as they are utterly terrifying. We've sent our blunderbusses to flank the bulk of the orcs, and the result is a similar consistency to mushy peas. All that's left now is for Ironhand to do his thing.
That's sick. He's got twin-link flamethrowers. Okay, a couple things to note here. Number one, the Bull Centaur renders we saw in the Chaos Dwarf announcement cinematic, those were great weapon variants. These are axe and shield, so there will be at least 2 or 3 separate variants. One may or may not have throwing axes like Centaurs did in the Beastmen DLC, but more than likely, I think there will be a great weapon variant, an axe and shield variant, and a dual weapon variant, probably bonus versus infantry. So there will be some variation on the monstrous cavalry side of things. Looking at their stats, 62 speed is nothing to write home about. It's slower than a lot of other monstrous cavalry, certainly slower than a lot of other heavy cav, but not that much slower than like Reichsguard and some other units of that kind of caliber. High melee defense with the shields, middling melee attack, not too impressive there. Okay-ish charge bonus, but the weapon strength is definitely very impressive. And of course, having that additional missile block chance will help a lot combined with scaly skin. Probably not that easy to shoot them, even though they only have 50 armor. This right here, actually they have a ward save built in, which is interesting. I'm not sure if that's being imbued. Yeah, actually it's not being imbued from Astragoth, so I don't know where that's coming from. Don't remember them having a ward save on tabletop, at least not one that would translate to Total War, but there you go. And here is almost certainly Contempt. So this is the special rule that means that Chaos Dwarfs do not give a shit if hobgoblins or goblins are routing in front of them. They do not take leadership penalties. It's a similar idea to the expendable trait. Gonna be a really useful unit. Not sure that they're gonna be like super hyper used in campaign or anything, but they are being supported by Bull Centaur Taruk, and you'll probably see some builds in campaign that work around that. Certainly you will see them used in multiplayer.
Despite putting some greenskins in their place, Astragoth is a far cry from his former glory. A fact he'll need to overcome as he consolidates the orc-infested province of Zorn as Khul to reclaim his rightful place in the Tower of Zard. But proving he's the one true leader of the Conclave isn't old Ironhand's only goal. Oh no. A way into the domain of Hashut has shown itself, and, once breached, the Chaos Dwarfs can reap the most potent power known to Demon Dowie kind.
Pretty big confirmation here. Astragoth Ironhand, despite being the High Priest of Hashut, is not going to start his campaign in Zarnagrund. He will start in Uzkalak, which is the capital, or essentially the most important city, in Zorn Uzkul, the Great Skull Land, which is the northern area of the Darklands, and the part of the map where the dwarfs who were cut off from the Karazankor basically said, we can no longer be a part of the ancestor gods. We need Hashut, Father of Darkness, to deliver us from all demon kind. Uzkalak is really important in the lore because it's their most northern bastion, and it actually has a super important sea canal that rides underneath the city, through the Falls of Doom, connects it to Zarnagrund, connects it to the Sea of Dread way in the south, and connects the Chaos Dwarf Navy essentially to the north as well, to the Sea of Chaos. So without control of Uzkalak, the slave trade would not be opened up, and they would not have unfettered access to two major seaways. It essentially gives their navy the ability to cross all the way from the south, where Kugath is, to Norska, and sell their arms, sell their armaments, bring back whole crap tons of slaves.
And Dowie kind, the blood of Hashut. To get there, Astragoth will need to build a drill. A very, very big drill, which we can upgrade into level 2 and level 4 at the cost of a hefty sum of raw materials, which means we'll need a strong economy. We'll return to the Great Drill of Hashut in a little bit, but for now, what better way to amass great wealth than with great violence? We're weakened, we're outnumbered, and we're on the offensive. Thankfully, the lore of Hashut with its many fiery boons comes in clutch. Burning Wrath is our bread and butter in Astragoth's early campaign. Good damage, good range, good vibes. Who doesn't like swirling death lava?
Taking the vibes?
To the victor go the spoils. Another hard-won piece of the puzzle. Unlike every other faction in the world, Chaos Dwarfs know the value of hard work, the worth of a sweaty brow and calloused palms. That's why Chaos Dwarfs don't build any old settlements, no. They build outposts, factories and towers, all tools of the unrelenting machine of industry. Outposts are needed to mine raw materials, factories turn those raw materials into armaments and gold, and towers are our sprawling province capitals. But what do we build? Well, there's a lot of factors to take into consideration, and before we get there, let's rewind a little bit and take a deeper look at our economy. That's right, hold on to your seatbelt, I said economy. Chaos Dwarfs are industrious little fellas, and that's reflected in the way we'll manage our budding empire's resources. Behold, our new major currencies. Treasury, raw materials, armaments, and labor. And then there's conclave influence, but we'll come back to that later. Treasury needs no explanation, it's shiny, it's heavy, we love it. Raw materials does what it says on the tin, needed for certain buildings and technologies, and can be converted into ornaments or gold in specific factory buildings. Our primary source of raw materials is from outpost strip mines, but we can also trade with it using military convoys, which unlock at turn 5. Armaments. Primarily gained through factory assembly lines, armaments are used in the construction of advanced military buildings and some technologies. As with raw materials, we can trade armaments on military convoy expeditions for other goods. Labor, because all those tasty minerals aren't going to mine themselves. Labor directly affects the output of our raw materials. More strip mines requires more labor, and a dwindling workforce produces fewer raw materials. So keeping your control in check is advised. We can perform various actions with our labor force, increasing our gold stores or our conclave influence, or we can move labor around our sprawling empire to bolster provinces that might need the extra manpower. You may have guessed it, laborers are largely unpaid, gained from willing battles, and are usually greenskins. So, what to build? We've established that labor is important and its effectiveness is directly linked to a province's control. We need labor to mine raw materials, and those raw materials to produce armaments and other goods. I've got an idea, and feel free to disagree with me, that's fine, but I envision a Chaos Dwarf empire with districts. Here, in my homeland, I see the heart of my mining endeavours, free outposts and, keeping all those labourers in line, a tall, terrible tower. Yeah, let's do that. Our next province will be entirely factories, and that'll be our industrial district. Factories are too important to sleep on though, so we'll build a mixture for now, and utilise the swap settlement feature when it's district time.
So one of the major complaints that the Total Warhammer series has gotten over the years, particularly from hardcore strategy game enthusiasts, is that it's as wide as the ocean and as deep as a puddle. That it has all this variety all these amazing units and faction diversity and all this cool stuff. So many awesome elements on the battlefield side, but when it comes to the actual economic side of things, the strategy gaming, the empire building, there really isn't a whole lot going on. If you want money, you build the money building. If you want public order, you build the public order building. That there aren't necessarily that many things you have to think about for some of these factions, that their economy is just so straightforward, you can kind of build whatever you want and you're gonna be fine. I don't expect that this game will ever get anywhere close to the complexity of something like a Paradox game, of course, and it's certainly not even gonna be approaching what we saw in Attila and the things you had to balance there. But I think there's a lot of good steps in the right direction on this front. Instead of saying, oh yeah, I want 300 gold a turn, obviously I'm going to build the 300 gold a turn building, now there's more elements that you have to worry about. You have to worry about your labor. Do you have enough slaves to be working your pits? Do you have enough raw materials to feed into your Forges of Hashut to churn out those armaments to send to Norska and beyond and sell your goods? One of the things I really love about what they're doing with the Chaos Dwarfs here is that they're using mechanics from other factions that make a ton of sense here. And I know there are people that say, yeah, we want to have different mechanics every single time, but there are certain elements that should be ported one-to-one from other factions. And I really think the Cathay Caravan situation makes a lot of sense on the military convoy side. The fact that the Chaos Dwarfs can build up their armaments and get a huge surplus of those going, and then sell them to the highest bidder, to Norska, to the Warriors of Chaos. Not only is that awesome from a fluffy perspective, from a lore perspective, but it makes a lot of sense from an economic point of view as well, and it gives you something to think about. You can build your empire, you can build your economic strength by doing what the Chaos Dwarves are known to do, which is slave and sell weapons. We don't really have a full picture of exactly how this is all going to come together, of course, but I like what I'm hearing so far.
One of the handiest uses for labour is instant construction. For example, we can kickstart our economy by throwing labourers at it, instantly building a money pit to get those coffers flowing. Over in the tower, we'll want to work towards upgrading to rank 2 at the hefty cost of raw materials. An upgraded tower will give us access to the lava fields, where we can churn out more centaurs and the great Taurus, amongst other handy benefits.
Okay, well, this is a pretty cool little picture here. So in the bottom right, a bunch of demon smiths, so this will be your hero. It's essentially Sorcerer Prophet, but the hero variant. So for Zatan the Black, this would be your hero caster. Now, these are the basic locomotives, the things that will be in the front of your trains. Again, we don't have confirmation on exactly how the train system will work. I don't know, I don't think that's gonna come in this video, but maybe it will. That is a Skullcracker. That is an Iron Demon War Engine. That is a Magma Cannon, which would actually probably be more of a caboose or middle part of your train. That is a Bull Centaur Taruk. That is your hero Bull Centaur. That is a Bull Centaur Render with shields. And then in the level 2 building, the Lamasu, which is a flying caster that has access to bounce spells. Talked about that in the video yesterday. Bull Centaur Render, great weapon. And then I think Bull Centaur Render with dual weapons, probably bonus versus infantry. Bale Taurus is going to be at the top. Oh, he's blocking it right now. There's it, yeah. So there's the Great Taurus. So unflaming version, flaming version that has a DOT, kind of like a Mortis effect. Right here in the level 3 building for the locomotives, Hell Cannon and Deathstreaker Artillery, almost certainly. And then at the level 5, you're going to get your Earthshaker Cannons, which are just going to be absolutely ginormous explosions, destroying entire swaths of infantry every time they shoot. I do not know why there are 3 unit cards there. That is interesting, probably related to the train mechanic in some capacity, but I don't know exactly why there are 3 of them. That is the Kadai Destroyer in the level 5 Kadai building. That is a Kadai Fireborn, monstrous infantry that have dual weapons and presumably bonus versus infantry. They're going to crumble like demons because of their blazing body and burning spirit special rules.
Other handy benefits. More ranks eventually leads to the Lanasu, Bull Centaur Renders, and the dreaded Bell Taurus, but that'll take time and some serious resources. Before we move on, it's a good idea to get some technology brewing. For Chaos Dwarfs, the technology tree is split into 3 branches: military, sorcery, and industry. No points for guessing which one does what, although our sorcery tree is also where we'll find our diplomatic boons. No wrong answers here, we can cater our society to fit very specific molds. Military powerhouse or economic marvel, the choice is ours. And we're going to choose a nice mixed spread. We'll start with Merchants Guild for the bonus to trade, and then we'll work towards Envoys of the Conclave in the Sorcery Tree, which will get us on good standing with our fellow Chaos Dwarfs. It'll be a while until we need to worry about unlocking technologies with specific resources, so let's just push that out of our heads for now. And whilst we're pushing that out of our heads, let's push some new skills into Astragoths. Route Marcher, that's a given, and we'll drop points into Aspiring Presence now and Featherant Fodder later. I'm going to be playing quite cannon fodder heavy, and it's nice if your meat shields don't run away. At level 12, Astragoth can unlock this lovely little joy, Master of the Conclave. Being quite so angry, expansive, and repugnant, the Chaos Dwarfs get a fairly bad rap abroad. Anything we can do to soften that image will be handy in the long run. With our dashing Bull Centaur hero, we'll prioritise training where possible, and then just make him a right good stabber of living things, I reckon. What a beautiful bull man. What's his name? Zorak. I think not. Welcome to the party, Natalie. I'm so sorry. Whew, almost done with turn 1. My word.
He's a bull though. Bulls don't neigh. What? What are you talking about?
We'll just recruit some sneaky gobbos, another unit of Chaos Dwarf warriors, and some more cannon fodder, labourers. Then it's all aboard the Chaos Dwarf Express to Murderville. Choo choo.
Okay, that was a fire transition.
Dang, greenskins are holed up on some prime real estate. We'll spread our attackers, as is only correct and proper, to assault on 4 fronts. I know, full frontal charges with cavalry are frowned upon, but I can take them. Especially with a little help from the laws of Hashut and fire. Oh, lava stomp. You love to see it. As predicted, Astragoth, Natalie and their centaur children made light work of their orcish opponents. Elsewhere, we're making slow but steady progress into the din, and I can only imagine the
Astragoth
furious
Ironhand,
indignation of
rule
the
34 when?
locals. With one entrance breached, we're free to sow chaotic seas with our cavalry. Oh, mecha body slam.
I love the entirely unnecessary, super epic music for like a pretty mundane settlement battle.
Zorna's Call is once again united, and Astragoth's quest to re-establish his dominance within the Tower of Zar can begin in earnest. We'll set the Billowing Smokestacks commandment to maintain control over our labour and contemplate where to forge ahead next. Remember, we'll be looking for a nice, nearby province to build our factories. The path to the east is tempting, and opens us up to the Mountains of Morn. Though the ogres are not a force to be taken lightly. Either way, the Saberskins are less than friendly. War will sing in the mountains eventually. Tantalizingly close, the High Pass is our most obvious choice, and though these crumbling ruins may appear abandoned, they hum with the scratching machinations of Skaven. Though is not as immediate a threat, the vampires and the orcs of the World Edge Mountain hold no love for us, and would stand fast in the face of our expansive ambitions. But not all our neighbours want us dead, and indeed our fellow Chaos Dwarfs also call these lands home. We would be wise to foster a strong relationship with our kind, for in a world that hates our very existence, they are our truest hope for an ally. You know what, let's just stomp on some rats.
Down with that. Kenobi! Couple things to note here. Number one, we can see his entire army almost right now in the early game is comprised of slaves. That is going to be one of the biggest differences between the Chaos Dwarfs and the Dwarfs. At this point, with a Dwarf army, you would already have a bunch of Grudge Throwers. You would already have a Dwarf Warrior and Quarreler front line. You could get all that stuff really early on in the campaign, and you're a problem for a lot of factions, particularly the Greenskins and Skaven. For the Chaos Dwarfs, your army is, I mean, it's kind of ass. Now, you're probably going to end up spamming Hobgoblin Archers in the early game, I would imagine. They may even become an important component for, like, most of the playthrough, even into late game, just because they're going to be cheap. Hobgoblin Archers are probably going to be pretty decent because they have a lot of models. They're going to maybe be a little bit more accurate than regular Goblin Archers, a little bit better leadership, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, you look at his army there, it is all crappy greenskin laborers and slaves. Other thing I want to say, the aesthetic of this faction is awesome. I am really glad they did what I was hoping they would do, which is blending the Legion of Asgore visuals and aesthetic with the more 80s and early 90s style with the crazy hats, but they didn't make it too ridiculous looking. There's just a nice blend that overall has come together into a really cohesive faction that I think looks gorgeous across the board.
Classic ogres, couldn't wait their turn. No matter what direction we started in, we were always going to end up in a situation like this. At least our tower will act as a barrier between the ogres and the rest of our settlements. It's got a strong garrison, so we should be alright for now. If things start looking hairy, we can recruit an emergency lord and hope for the best. Impulsive. That's what I like my leaders to be. Anyway, we've only gone and collected a fair few influence points. Let's say we crack open the Tower of Zar and see what's inside. Okay, alright, I see how it is. 2 seats already taken. I guess that's what I get for savouring my rat stomping. Anyway, much like the Chaos Dwarfs technology pillars, the Tower of Zar is split into industry, military, and sorcery. There are 4 tiers, 3 districts, and a whole lot of boons to gobble down, with the ultimate prize being the confederation of our fellow Chaos Dwarfs. To unlock the next tier, 2 full districts must be completed in the previous tier. Thanks to my like-minded kin, we're well on our way to achieving those ends. Not gonna lie, I did want the Machinator seat for the bonus to raw materials. We could dethrone them, we have the influence to do so, but we're still trying to play nice at the moment, so probably not the best of ideas. I'm a little miffed, but we'll park our bum on the blacksmith seat for now. Extra ornaments is nothing to sniff at, and by any means seats aren't permanent. We'll have another shot eventually. Or we'll build an economy so vast every seat is dwarfed beneath our all-encompassing buttocks. Politics.
From what I can tell on the Conclave of Sorcerer panel, it doesn't seem like it's a super deep mechanic. Basically, you get influence, you can spend it on a certain seat. A lot of those seats look like they're going to have some impactful bonuses. Didn't see the higher tier stuff, but even on the lower end, raw materials per turn, income from settlement buildings plus 25%, like there are some really good ones there. This is just the first tier that should be relatively easy to grab. You can kick your opponents out, but all you got to do is just spend the influence, so there's not a lot of interplay or counterplay there. You basically just say, I'm spending stuff, and then, okay, you're out, I've taken your seat now. The Confederation later on, it's 600 influence total, I think, to confederate. That could take a while. I'll be curious to see whether this is like, you're only going to be able to confederate past turn 100, how many people will even get that deep into the campaign, or if this is relatively easy to attain. But it seems like you can only confederate in this manner. I don't think you're going to be able to do it through the regular diplomacy side. So you better make sure you accrue that influence as fast as you can. I think the AI might be able to do this too, so you gotta get going on that pretty quick, I think. But in regards to the mechanic itself, I think this is one of those situations where it'll be entirely dependent on what the bonuses you receive are. If they're cool and interesting and fun, this mechanic could be great. If they're not particularly interesting, if they're not particularly impactful, no one's gonna care, and it'll just kind of feel like a marketing spiel that didn't really translate to a lot more complexity in the final game, which complexity inherently in and of itself isn't necessarily a good thing, but I think wherever they can, adding a bit more depth to the campaign side is probably a decent thing. And I'd say on the economic side, so far, they've shown some depth there. With this, we'll see what the bonuses are. Generally, it just kind of seems like I want that cool bonus. Boom, I clicked it, now I have it.
Politics. Unfortunately, we're not quite secure enough in our economy to easily swallow the cost of sending a convoy out just yet. Not whilst we're waging 2 wars, anyway. You know what? The convoy will have to wait. Back to squashing rats.
How did he do that?
I enjoyed that. There's something cathartic about watching Skaven run for their lives. Right then, the High Pass is now our industrial district. We're not accepting labour here, instead funneling it all into our mining district, which we've now converted into entirely outposts. I've opted not to build a tower in Karagvlag. I'll use them more on my frontiers to hold our borders firm, much like our capital's been doing with the Ogres, which is good because they're not friendly. Thanks to the Tower of Tsar and our Master of the Conclave talent, we're making diplomatic headway with our fellow Chaos Dwarfs. And we may need to call in some military favours soon if the Saberskins don't calm down. Anyway, right now we've got greener fish to fry. The World's Edge Mountains is home to the Red Eye clan. More greenskins! And they're none too thrilled that we kicked their vampire friends out of the Silver Pinnacle. They're gonna be less than thrilled when we make them homeless.
Leave Neferon alone.
Positively upset when we put them to the mines. Whilst Astragoth psychs himself up for more wholesome violence, we'll have our second army begin the recruitment drive for a pair of great Tauruses. Taurusai? Alright, let's do this. Gearing up for one big old war. Bring it on, orcs. Oh, okay. There we go then. 20 odd turns in and we've managed to claw ourselves into a somewhat steady footing. The Saberskin Ogres are still causing us a little grief, so we'll likely put them down next. But by adding the World's Edge Mountains to our growing territories, we've opened ourselves up to attacks from Kislevites and our inferior mountain-dwelling cousins. Indeed, the journey ahead is perilous, and Astragoth's gonna need a leg up if he... Oh! I just mean you could use a hand. I'm sorry. Look, what I'm trying to say is we've got a new epic quest with some stellar rewards up for grabs. The influence alone will set us forward, but the Black Hammer of Hashut is a must for any would-be Master of the Conclave. Thank you, Burndin, for keeping our flying cows warm. We'll put them to good use, worry not. Okay, here's the deal. We've got a derailed train and a very important payload to deliver. Our task, ensure the payload arrives at the victory point unscathed. Grabby goblins and opportunist orcs will... Hold up. To deliver. Our task.
Okay, so at the moment, it looks like that's just one magma cannon or Death Shaker, but I think it's the magma cannon and the Iron Demon War Engine. So we're not seeing a full-on artillery train with like 3, 4, or 5 all together. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if that means this is the extent of what you can do with the train, or if there will be more cabooses you could add to the end. Interesting though. Looks cool.
Ensure the payload arrives at the victory point unscathed. Grabby goblins and opportunist orcs will use this narrow valley to their advantage, meaning we must be vigilant. That's right, kids. It's an escort quest. We've got a replacement train up and running, and I'd wager good money we'll see our first combat on one of these 2 bridges. Or both. For good measure, we'll split our forces into 2 crack teams with Astragoth heading one and Nathalie the other.
Okay, this is really cool.
Ooh, there they are. We'll set our great Taurus on their archers and take the rest head on. as first waves go, it's immensely survivable. Bit of flanking, bit of magic, bit of vigorous stabbing, and they're running for the hills. As Astragoth's team continues to the next ramp on the other side of the valley, Natalie's got a big old spider to squash. Rather them than me. It's a tougher crowd than Team A face, but nothing Natalie can't handle. Meanwhile, more greenskins are pouring into the valley and Astragoth's keen to meet them.
The terrain and the extra frills, bells, and whistles here, really nice. I mean, you can look at it and immediately go, yeah, that's definitely Chaos Dwarfs. Burning industry, black mortar, stone, and of course the railway running right through the middle. The train itself is not under their control, but just the way it's set up looks exactly like you'd expect it would be implemented from a unit perspective. So I do believe at least you will be able to put a locomotive and a caboose, an artillery of some sort on the back, connected to an Iron Demon war engine or a Skullcracker. One of the things I'm most excited to see is how far CA can push that feature of the Chaos Dwarfs. I don't know if we're going to be able to get full-on 5-unit trains all combined into one just destruction, dastardly doom cycle, but I do hope so. And even if it's only one, putting a Dreadquake mortar on the back of an Iron Demon war engine, that's a super sick combination. But of course, I want CA to take it even further than that.
Good job, Natalie. We'll take Team B to the next ramp whilst Team A mops up the stragglers. Oh, I think the Great Taurus might be my new favourite unit. Look at it go, so beautiful, so graceful, so moo.
Yes, bulls go moo, they don't go nay. Thank you.
Oh right, not too far from our destination now and the payload's yet to be scratched.
That's multiple
Whatever
artillery
comes next weekend,
on one
the
train.
bars are coming in.
Ooh.
I should shut up, enjoy the film.
Shots are insane. Did Astragoth just Chun-Li roundhouse kick a rogue idol to death? Those are some serious thunder thighs, my guy. That was actually really impressive. They did an amazing job with editing that video. Like the stuff they were doing there is definitely a step up from some of the videos they've done in the past on the marketing side. I don't even know how they got some of those shots. Like, felt more like they were using special tools to get those done, because I don't know how they got them. It looks awesome. I'm not going to lie. It looks really damn good. At this stage, a month out from release, obviously I have no idea if it's going to be worth the extra 20% or more that we're going to be spending this time around due to inflation. All I can say is I think they're shaping up really nicely. And the big thing, obviously, is it is a hard sell when you're talking, I mean, 25 bucks, that is approaching half the price of the full game for one faction, 3 lords. Yeah, that can be a little bit difficult to justify, right? If you have $25 of disposable income and you really like Total War and you really like Total War Warhammer and you like Chaos Dwarfs, then yeah, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. For people who don't have that kind of disposable income, it's going to be a much harder decision. And I think we are approaching that area where people are saying, and I had plenty of comments that were saying the same thing, saw it on Reddit, saw it on the forums, saw it on my own channel. People are like, this is starting to get so expensive as to be prohibitive, and do I really want to spend what little disposable income I have on that? And there's probably a variety of factors why that price is increased as much as it has. Again, I was not surprised that I saw that, because if you think about the last time Vampire Coast or Tomb Kings came out, it was a while ago. Things were already inflated, and it's gotten a whole lot worse over the last year or two since COVID. It's just the way it is. Overall, I'm very excited with what I've seen here. I think there's a lot to look forward to on the Chaos Dwarf side, but the price is a problem for some people, and I totally get that and respect it, and I think there's definitely a debate worth having on that front, and I want you guys to share your opinions about it. So I'm going to leave it there for now. We're going to be covering the Chaos Dwarfs a lot over the next several weeks, so do stay tuned. Be covering info for Drazoath the Ashen, Zatan the Black, unit roster, and so on. And of course, as soon as gameplay can be posted, I will be posting gameplay for it. So, hope you guys enjoyed this playthrough. I'll see you all in the next one. Any Pride, signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.